Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Jason Howell is here. He's from All About Android and is an Android expert. So we gave him something I didn't even know existed. I've had Sharp Aquos TVs. They were the early nice LCDs. Those are the ones
good screen.
that they had George Takei, right? They went, oh my. And if George Takei saw this, he might say, oh my. It's an Aquos phone.
It's kind of striking looking too. It's the Sharp Aquos Crystal. And
there's no bezels.
Well, that's the thing. There's like 75% no bezel, right? You don't have any on the top and the sides.
Just the bottom.
You have a pretty large chin down here.
Well, you got to do something.
But you got, yes, exactly. And not to mention, you know, there's a front-facing camera you have to have somewhere. You have your sensors. You have your notification light. Yeah. They went ahead and put it on the bottom. So you have a little bit of an extra bezel down there. But for the most part, I mean, it's kind of futuristic looking when you see the screen going right up to the edge in person. It's a very interesting design choice.
Well, I think that's one way to differentiate yourself nowadays, right?
Absolutely, completely agree. Now this is, it's the Sharp Aquos Crystal. It's $240 off contract on Sprint. Or if you're going MVNO, Virgin, Boost, you can get it for $150. So it's definitely low to mid-range kind of spec territory here.
It ain't Lollipop, but it is KitKat.
It is KitKat, 4.4 KitKat. It's 1.2 gigahertz quad-core Snapdragon 400 processors, and a lot of the lower to mid-range devices like the Moto G.
I keep wanting to say move it, we're getting a reflection, but that's...
Oh, yeah, that's the screen. Yeah, that's actually the screen.
That's bizarre.
That's the wallpaper on the back.
But it's going over the top on the front.
So what's interesting if you see it in person is that the glass, well, it's actually not glass, it's a plastic screen, protrudes off the top of the device. You can kind of see it separate there, and it's kind of a thick sheet of plastic on top. So it's kind of like the screen itself. You know, Sharp Aquos has, the line has a pretty nice, vibrant screen. And I would definitely say that this screen kind of falls into that category. It's a 720p screen, 5-inch device. Not IPS,
it's
LCD.
LCD, okay.
LCD. Micro SD card slot on the back, underneath the flap, which, you know, kind of has this kind of dimpled approach that we're seeing a little bit more of. Can't say I'm a huge fan of the back. It feels pretty flimsy and plasticky, and to be honest, the first time I took it off, one of the snap tabs actually snapped off. Oh. So now...
Oh.
I know.
Can you replace the battery?
You cannot. It is a non-removable.
Oh, see, that's frustrating. You get the back off, but the battery's glued in.
Yeah, so it's under there. You can't get to it. But you do have your micro SD card slot if you want to expand the memory, of which there is 8 gigs on board.
Is that all?
That's all.
Very light.
So very light. You know, low to mid-range. That's exactly what they're targeting here. 1.5 gigs of RAM. Interesting. Don't normally see that extra 0.5 in there, but there you go. And then an 8-megapixel rear-facing camera, 1.2 megapixel front-facing camera down here. Now that's interesting. Brian, I don't know if you have the photos lined up. The last two are front-facing pictures.
Feels like you're going to get a lot of the palm of your hand on this one.
Well, and that's the thing, right? So like this is holding the phone the way you normally would to do a selfie, and you end up looking up your nose. Yeah. They recommend, and there's actually an on-screen notifier that tells you
hold the phone up,
hold it upside down, and you'll, you know, so when you're taking a selfie, it actually tells you to rotate the phone, which I suppose this doesn't look that strange, you know, when you're in the camera mode. So anyway, something to keep in mind. Since we're talking about the camera, first and foremost, it's definitely one of the downsides of the device. I took a lot of outside pictures. This is a low to medium light, I would say, and it looks okay. The problem is when you get really close to a lot of these pictures, you know, you zoom in, a lot of detail is lost, very pixelated. It's just not the kind of camera that you're going to want to take a lot of, you know, really great pictures that you're going to hold on to. So there's that. The video also, I don't know if I put a video, you know, kind of washed out. Yeah. Like that was super colorful in person. And so just a lot of quality is kind of lost.
Well, I can see how blurry it is there. It's just not very crisp.
But definitely the standout feature of the Aquos Crystal is kind of the display itself, the edge-to-edge bezel, you know, more of the design of the display. I will say that the plastic the plastic layer on top is not very good at protecting itself from scratches. I don't know if you can see down there. There's already a scratch there, and I take pretty good care of my review units.
That's why you want glass on there.
Yeah, I mean, and if if I was to turn this off and look at it closely, well, you'll just see smudges right now. But there's a lot of little micro scratches through there, and I've been basically carrying it in my pocket for the last couple of weeks, so that shouldn't happen. But there you go. But the display itself, the screen itself, I think actually looks pretty good, and it's definitely one of the highlights. What else do we have here? Weight-wise, it's a little heavier, a little thicker. Again, it's the low to mid-range device category. So,
and it's 720p, and it's a 5-incher?
5-inch screen. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Which, man, just feels small to me after the Nexus 6.
I know, we're spoiled. But I have to say, I like the design. I think that the no bezels is unique.
It is totally unique, and I hope to see more of this. I will say one of my fears with a minimal bezel design is that you'd have unintentional touches registered on the edges, and I have experienced some of that, where suddenly something goes awry, and I'm like, how did that happen? Well, it could have only been, my fingers holding the device on the side. So keep that in mind. Maybe the lack of bezel, maybe a bezel is there to kind of prevent some of those phantom touches and stuff. Performance-wise, it's a Snapdragon 400 processor, so doing things on an OS level is pretty straight. You can kind of see it a little bit jagged there, and especially like if you're doing anything in the background, like updating your apps through the Play Store or downloading something or whatever, everything slows to a halt, including web browsing. So do keep that in mind. The 400 processor is good for regular stuff, but not high performance stuff like some of the advanced gaming that you'll find on Android these days. Battery life was great, and partially that's because of the 720p screen. We're not driving a full 1080p screen, and really no complaints there. And then software-wise, you'll notice, this is all pretty much straight, it's their own version of the launcher, but they didn't really customize it. Yeah, and even the settings, there's minimal software features. This is stay on, so it detects when you're holding it, and it'll keep the screen on while you're holding it. There's also some other features for accelerometer style stuff.
New to phones? Is this, I don't remember.
I have not seen another Sharp phone in the U.S. I don't believe this is their first, but
I know they make them in Japan.
Yeah, exactly. I think here in the U.S. you just really don't see them. Harman Kardon audio features, which I really didn't, really didn't experience much difference with those, but you've got them in there. I suppose it's a nice feature to have.
HTC also offers that now.
Yeah, exactly. But overall, it's a pretty stock experience. I will say that this is a Sprint device, and there's a bunch of preloaded apps, most of which you can uninstall, which is good because it's 8 gigs of storage, but some of the Sprint-specific apps stay there. And what bugs me more than anything when I see these kind of pre-installed apps is when you have a nice screen and the icons for the pre-installed apps are not updated. And so you get this mix of like blurry icons and everything else looking sharp, and it just, I don't know, for some reason that bugs me, but I suppose that's what you get. So that is the Sharp Aquos Crystal. I'd say the pros, obviously the bezel-less design is unique and definitely eye-catching. The display itself looks great in person. I really liked it. And I'd say the phone, for its class, performs pretty well with standard slowdown, as you would expect with the Snapdragon 400 processor. And the battery life is very good as well. On the cons, it's fragile. The exposed glass right up to the tip means if you drop this face down, you're going to get scratches.
Or even on the corner, you might really damage the screen just by hitting the corner.
True. It's out there, so there's nothing to protect it. So you probably want a case, which will then eliminate the whole bezel, factor. The back plate also kind of delicate. So overall, it felt kind of fragile. Camera results, not so good. Limited availability because it's only Sprint and MVNOs. So you kind of have to be, a Sprint customer to even get in on this. So I suppose as my verdict, I'd have to say it's a try. I think value-wise, $240 unlocked, $150 unlocked if you're version or boost. Those are good prices, but it definitely has some downsides to it. So if style is what you're in for, you're going to get some points with the Sharp Aquos Crystal. But beyond that, there are
It looks great, and it looks different, and that's something that you don't see a lot. Android phones have now become kind of all
Completely
of a
agree.
kind.
I would love to see more phones kind of in this category because it really does feel kind of futuristic.
They
to
do
have
make a
bezel-less phone.
5.5-inch high-end version of this
Okay.
phone. So we should get a review unit
That'd be
of
nice.
that.
I'd like to
That's
see
of course
that.
much more expensive. I think an interesting try from Sharp, but not necessarily a buy.
Yeah, definitely not a rush
Jason.
out and buy. No questions asked.
Yeah,
but
a try.
yeah.
Very good.